4:45. I will call this policy committee meeting to order. Item number 2, roll call. Russ Ewert.
Here.
Kim Higginbotham.
Here.
And myself, Tom Barney, is here as well. Item 3, agenda revisions and approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Russ, second by Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 4, approval of minutes. Item A, approval of November 13th, 2023 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 13th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, motion by Higginbotham, second by Ewert. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That carries. Item 5, new business. Item A, discussion and action regarding updates and modifications to district policies 0100 through 9800.01. We can start with policy 2521, which is selection of instructional materials and equipment. This is coming back to us from our meeting in November.
Yes, it is.
Dr. Ewert?
It is back. So you had asked me to bring back this policy with a little more finite detail. For this policy, the definition of instructional materials is defined as supplemental books, supplemental readings, and online resources. This would then tie under our course adoption policy, whereas a board, first to the Teaching and Learning Committee, then to the full board, curriculums and adoptions of courses and the studies involved in that are approved. Then this allows for the instructional material piece outside of said curriculum that's approved. When you look at the 3 areas that are defined, supplemental books, those would be additional readings or need for supplemental support to a curriculum if there's something lacking. Those would be worked with the building principal and the director of teaching and learning with classroom teachers. That would be the same with supplemental readings and online resources. As those of you that are aware that are on the Teaching and Learning Committee, we're working to standardize those online resources so that we're not just kind of grabbing from the internet what might look good and great and hasn't been vetted through a process or hasn't been aligned to our adopted standards. So you'll see as an addition to this policy, Mr. Miziak and I worked on administrative guidelines for online resources. So there's some guidance for teachers at the building level when looking for additional needs that may arise, that they have guidelines for that selection, and then deferring back to the Teaching and Learning Department for additional guidance. This policy doesn't supersede the work we're doing as a district. I'll give you an example. Discovery Ed is an area that we've talked a lot at Teaching and Learning about as an online digital resource. Right now we don't have any concrete standardized big ticket online resources. In the past it's kind of been at teacher will. We're trying to build those big online resources then that teachers can utilize and we can manage as a school district as the first stop shop, and then this policy outlines if there's an additional need, which would be worked with our Teaching and Learning Department and building-based administrators as well as department or grade level teams, because again, as we've talked a lot in the last year and a half, we're trying to standardize specifically at the elementary level, even from middle and high, the same experiences, the same resources across classrooms, whether it's a grade level or a given course at middle and high school. So it's not different depending upon what teacher you got and what resources they selected, but these are district selected resources. So that definition is here, and then those supplemental pieces fall under adopted course study and textbook adoption. And I think that was the main sticking point in the last conversation regarding this policy, because the instructional equipment definition is those concrete hardware things, like when you approve Chromebooks or you approve science equipment or CTE equipment, career and technical education equipment, and those pieces are the bigger ticket items, and those are defined down below, like a kiln, easels, those type of things as well. So I don't know if there's further questions related to the instructional material piece for clarification or anything other feedback on the policy.
Yes,
So I look at some of the work we're doing in teaching and learning. One of the most recent ones that came through was this Dreambox.
Mm-hmm.
That's a district-wide scenario. This policy isn't in governance to decision-making behind this. Something at that level, this would be more the staff member seeing or taking some form of whether YouTube video, whatever type of either whether it's a worksheet or supplemental reading material, video of that type, and trying to apply it to a lesson plan that is derived from the adoption that this board has put forward for curriculum.
Sure.
This would be governing those finite, giving some framework for decision making for that staff member in regards to what they could or should and why or shouldn't they bring something in versus these bigger ticket items that are kind of across district applications, which layerly will help supplement that need anyways. Regardless, we'll still have times where staff members would like to bring in
Yep.
kind of one-off items, and this will help give that framework for their decision-making process for what should or shouldn't come.
That's exactly correct. I can give the example. It's probably pertinent to the weather right now. If I'm teaching a weather course at the high school and I have a universal curriculum that outlines the key concepts of weather and understanding of that. But wow, what a great moment right now to show maybe some local news clips or national news clips of weather across the region of what's happened in the last week. This is what that policy is for. It's not to extract the curriculum that we've adopted and we expect to be utilized to fidelity and then just kind of grab the things you want. This is those supplemental pieces for maybe those just-in-time learning moments and those types of pieces. But they need to align back to the course adoption that was created, the understanding by design framework and standards that have been applied, and the assessments that are part of that as well. So you can't deter and just say, I'm going to use all these videos I found on something I like. It has to supplement what has been.
And I think we see it too
Adopted.
in the district sometimes with good intent. That material's brought in, and sometimes really nice material. Other times it's brought into the point that it masquerades itself as curriculum, which hasn't been adopted or approved.
Correct. It's
And-
far-fetching from what the actual expectation
Yeah, we just get
outcome.
a little too far off.
Mhm.
So this will help bring that in, set expectations and a framework of decision making around it. That's the
Yep.
goal, I guess, is what I'm looking at from this policy.
Yep, and I think going back to what you're talking about related to the work of teaching and learning, the more curriculum reviews we go through, the less need for supplemental resources. Because at this time, we don't have standardized curriculums across the district in all given areas, so there is a need at times to supplement where we know there are gaps. I think about right now, we're doing some really great work. I was looking at some map data this morning with Mr. Miziak related to our reading pilots and kids in pilots and not in pilots. Well, if you think about it right now, the kids who aren't in pilots, everything is supplemental. So
Yeah,
once the pilot has been adopted, whatever one we go forward with, there's going to be not a need to supplement.
And I
Will
guess,
there be little corners here and there? Possibly, yes, but that would go through a
Yeah.
district level
Well,
work. But right now there is a supplemental need.
I think to your point, that timely learning, right? Like there's always something happening potentially in the world that might
Mhm.
accentuate some sort of material, right?
Yep.
But to prevent it from becoming that masquerade of curriculum where each classroom is its individual and there's no continuity across.
Right.
Okay. The majority of the language in here is that Neola?
It's all Neola. It was just moved around a little bit just
Okay.
for clarity.
And that was the initial approach, as they were
They gave us their
recommending,
standard,
like,
yep.
hey, you guys should have some framework here.
Correct, because if you look at extract the green, which is all new, that's our previous policy. It starts on the first paragraph and go on page 2. The district does not discriminate. So there's all of the green. There's no clear-cut definition of what instructional materials are or instructional equipment. So that leaves the world open, to say the least.
Yeah. And then the next thing we see attached to it is the administrative guideline.
Yep. These are what Mr. Miziak and I put together for, that will go in the administrative guideline book that we can change at any time. Since they're administrative guidelines, they don't have to go to the board for approval, but we currently have no administrative guidelines for this policy. So we put this together when it relates to selecting online resources or internet resources, which could be everything itemized on the first page. You can find supplemental books on the internet, you can find supplemental readings on the internet, and obviously online resources. So this gives guidance to a teacher when going, I do think I need something to supplement here, or that just-in-time learning, there's guidance here of how to go about doing that, that we can hold everyone accountable to, so it's not the Wild West of selecting things off the internet, as we know there's a lot of things on the internet.
Good.
All right, good discussion.
So as far as like, what internet resources then that are going to be used, that is just strictly going to be with the administrator and the teaching and learning? That won't go through the board at all? Is that my understanding?
If there's a need for supplemental, correct. But the big pieces like Discovery Education, any online components that come with a course adoption site, Dreambox, that are big items that we're expecting standardized, that should deter from the need to supplement. But if there's still a need, then that would be worked out at the local level versus coming to the board, because that could
Gotcha.
be, I can't move forward with anything until it
Right.
comes to a board meeting. So like my example of weather,
Right.
I can't use Channel 6's news clip from Milwaukee and Chicago to show the difference of what weather look like there until it goes to the board. Then we're getting
Well, yeah,
too
that doesn't make
granular,
sense.
right?
No, right. I get it.
I did see, and I'm just looking for it, there was language in here, though, that the district administrator shall provide a review process for the board. Is that annually, or is that,
That is.
I'm just missing it. I know I had it in here. I thought I had it
It's
that
highlighted.
letter
new
D, isn't
language?
it? Is that what you're looking at, letter D on the guidelines? It's there.
Periodic reviews of instructional material, including internet resources, will be conducted by district administration or their designee.
Yep. And that
Yeah,
would go
I thought
through
there was
teaching and
language
learning.
specific to that the administrator would provide.
And I think that would be, here's an example, when we see a need that we are supplementing in a said curriculum beyond the scope of what the curriculum was that we purchased. An example would be Jake bringing Dreambox to you. There's a need beyond Bridges. So now we're reviewing, instead of everyone going and finding what they need. It's in the administrative guidelines, Russ.
In yellow.
Instead of everyone going out individually to find what they need, then it's, okay, we need to review
This
this.
is the
Jake
source.
brings forward a big program like Dreambox. Now the
Mhm.
supplement goes away because we have something to supplement the supplement.
Right.
Yeah, that's in the administrative
Indeed,
guideline.
yeah.
We're looking at, and thank you, Kim, for,
Mhm.
this was the technology here. Try to get you on the, this would be the second page. Third paragraph? District administrator shall develop administrative guidelines, so that paragraph. It ends with provide a systematic review by the board for the districts. And then lists a bunch of, do you see where I'm
Yep.
talking about? So that would be, at some point, you would be, how do you envision that working?
Similar to the internet resources, we create guidelines for instructional materials and equipment for the maintenance of.
Yeah,
So
but
clearly, the
just
maintenance
looking
of for the materials comes through teaching and learning. If there's, the example I just gave with Dreambox, there's a need, right?
Yeah, no, I get that, but what I'm saying is provide a systematic review by the board. So if we have teachers pulling in all this, and they're in line with this policy, they're still in here, it's stating that you would be providing systematic review by the board. So some form of reporting to us for review.
Yeah, we annually could provide you an update of, probably through teaching and learning, the most utilized, right? Because anything that's done on a
Yeah.
district computer or the network we see, so we could see them, for educational purposes, YouTube was utilized, this percentage at these levels. Any other website or something that, this database or this, kind of like how Jake has brought forward data related to the use of our current big ticket items and the percentage of teachers that are using it at what
Mhm.
level. We could do that annually through teaching and learning for sure.
That would be beneficial as far as to finance too, because if we're not utilizing a resource, there's no reason to keep it.
Yep.
And just keep
It's kind of the why we
updating it.
switched from Schoology to Google
Mhm.
Classroom. Though there were some users that were using it heavily, the number of people that had access and to utilize was real small.
Right.
Yep. I'll talk with Mr. Miziak about that. We'll develop something for teaching and learning annually.
Sure.
All right, any other discussion? Mr. Loth?
In the instructional equipment, I think you could read into it, but I don't see any mention of shop equipment. Do we need to add anything for our shop classes? You know, we've got,
Is that technical education tools and appliances?
could be.
Yeah. I think these, and it says examples of instructional equipment include but are not limited to. I mean, it could be a 50-page policy with the equipment we have from kindergarten, 4K to 12th grade of what's in, the capital. I think you're talking, because we're not laying out.
I wouldn't lay out everything,
Yeah.
but there's no mention of shop equipment, of which there's plenty.
I think career and technical education tools and appliances.
Okay.
Anything, when you see CTE or career and technical education, that's kind of the umbrella that encompasses everything from face classes, cooking classes to woodworking to welding.
I think when I
Everything
read
is-
it, that's my first thought was, that's what that was referring to.
You know,
But you're thinking it needs to be more.
Like-
it seems like some other items got a little bit detailed, like whiteboards and some of that stuff.
Microscopes. I see what you're saying.
And we left out, seems like we left out shop class equipment. I mean, it could be that simple, shop class equipment.
Yeah, the technical term would be
Yes.
career and technical
Okay,
education
okay.
equipment, because shop isn't a term used anymore, though I know what you're talking about.
It's not.
It's not, I apologize,
What?
Michael. Like next month is, for the state, Career and Technical Education Month, it's not shop month, so
We're gonna have a visitor for that.
we are going to have a visitor.
And,
Would you like that added under career and technical education, comma, tools, appliances, and equipment?
sure. And then, just a question, when I read this, it seemed like the district does not discriminate on the basis of any characteristic. That seems out of place in this policy, or why is any of that even in here? So it's, none of it's in green, it's been there.
That's been there,
For a
and it's in
while.
accordance with policy 9130, that's above it. That reference was never there. Public requests, suggestions, or complaints.
So,
But doesn't that just fit under our non-discrimination? They've given us guidance in that in the past of just remove this, you have a non-discrimination policy. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Mike?
I think so. We go from talking about equipment to
It is
non-discrimination.
It does seem out of place.
Yeah, and I thought, what's this doing here? Unless it somehow applied to the use of internet.
It is
But-
cross-referenced down below in Educational Opportunities Act in 1974 and the Civil Rights Act and American with Disabilities. So I don't know if it's called out because that is part of legal notice at the conclusion.
So for some
Can we
reason
ask if
Neola
it has
wanted
to
it
be
there.
in there?
Yeah, I can ask, I'm sure it's illegal.
We don't need it.
I
Can
think
we
it's just redundant,
Right.
Yeah,
cause I think they specifically have given us that advice
in the past.
on others saying, you don't need this here, your non-discrimination policy covers this. You're just kind of regurgitating it here to add,
What?
yeah.
Yeah, and if it's referenced.
What does it have to
if
do with
it's
the
referenced
technical issue of the
below, I mean,
policy?
Well, committee, how do you wanna proceed with it?
I'd
Do we
like
wanna
to
get
see
it-
if we can get it
Do you wanna have
removed.
Neola check it to see if it needs to be there and not send this forward to the board one more time? Or move it forward and
I can bring
Get
it
an
back.
update.
Can we get an answer? Yeah, I think we could do that.
I could always we can approve it, and then I could bring it back with an answer in our next round in late March, early April. It will be our next full round from Neola. So this, I can just bookmark this if you want to approve it as is, and then we can bring it back. If they say, yeah, you can eliminate it, we can make that amendment.
Sure.
Versus
Committee okay with
holding
that?
and waiting, and then this policy.
Yeah, I mean,
still-
the rest of the policy's needed. I think that's just a technical, do we need to muddy the waters with this language?
Right, you want
That
tight
seems out of
policies,
place.
less language.
Yeah.
I had to go to the title and look at what I was reading when this popped up.
Sure.
Yeah, why is
And it just
this?
seemed odd.
And it's been in the policy since
09 or something?
11.
Oh, 11.
I
Alright.
think I would be, I think that's perfectly, there's no reason to hold the rest of it up to wait for that answer.
I can always
But
bring
we
it
can
back
get
as a
it,
technical quick change.
Yeah.
And I could ask them if it's a technical change that doesn't have to go to the board. Because there are sometimes slight wordings, you can do technical change without full board approval.
All right, and then to Mr. Loeff's request,
Yes,
You
we have
want in-
added the word career and technical education tools and equipment. After technical education tools, the word, we could do slash equipment, then we don't have to do another and make a run-on sentence. Sound good? Tools slash equipment.
committee have any issues with that?
No.
Okay,
so I'll make a motion to move forward with a positive recommendation to the full board, the approval of the updates, modifications of district policy 2521, selection of instructional materials and equipment with the edits as discussed during the meeting.
I will second.
all right. Motion by Ebert, second by Higginbotham. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, that takes us to item B, discussion and action regarding proposed policy 2133 class size. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
say this was first introduced back in our November meeting, and then I think the full board saw a preview of it in December, I believe. So, since we've seen this before, you've had some time to sleep on it. Now would be a good time to start the discussion.
So I know I'd asked for more data, input and information around, other than, because we think this is a good idea. It looks like we have some of that information. Chris, if you have more to
Yeah.
share on that.
So I included some research regarding class size. It is in between. There's no definitive research that states smaller class sizes lead to higher outcomes, because it ultimately relates to the teacher in front of the students, and if you have a high quality teacher, you'll have great outcomes. But that doesn't mean that from the day-to-day operations of a classroom, that class size shouldn't be considered. We don't want balloon-sized classes. We want classes that are manageable for the teacher and support staff that are working with students. However, we need to be fiscally responsible and not run classes of 15 or small class sizes, and have multiple sections at each building, given the fiscal responsibility as well as space within our buildings. So I've included 5 key aspects of the research from John Hattie and his meta-analysis, which is a study of over 1,000 research studies related to class size. And you can see that information here on the effect class size has, as well as our 3-year average of class size at the given grade levels, predominantly K-8, because at high school, it's about what classes kids sign up for, and we try not to balloon classes too big, but if there's only a section of a certain class being taught in a semester, the class might be big, or it might be a little bit smaller because it's the only opportunity kids might have in their 4 years to take that class. So you can see the average, and then the averages, if you look at the policy proposed, you can see it related to the size. It's important that, as reiterated from the previous policy meeting, I think Mr. Barney brought it up at the board meeting to the full board too, this is important for us as we begin planning for the 24-25 school year, and thinking about from a standpoint of our current enrollment that we roll up, and then any new students coming in, determining our staffing plan, which is roughly 80% of our budget. So this is timely. We've had some loose guidelines in the past that were on paper, but were not board approved. So this gives some transparency not only to the community of where we stand when it comes to determining class size and then how that affects our staffing plan, as well as it helps our teachers understand too, whether they're current teachers of kind of the ballpark where I know my classes could be, or prospective teachers coming here and understanding where we sit from an expectation as a school district on the size of class. So if it has many pieces, that's why I brought this forward as a new policy to the district with proposed class sizes outlined that are, again, said desired. We know things happen. If we get 4 kids that move in the middle of the year, we're not going to cut up a class and create a whole new section. We're going to work with the teacher, with support staff to make maybe a class that exceeds 23 and it's 25 to make it work for the rest of the year versus separating a class and then having 2 classes of, 7, 16 or whatever it might be, or 12 in that case. So these are recommendations that are desired, but they give us clear fence lines of what our tolerance level is as a school district.
Thank you. One thing I passed around, I just wanted one additional data point. So I averaged the averages. So you can kind of see over the last 3 years what the average was, just to compare that to your proposed policy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It does look, from not only the information provided by the district in the packet, but the sheet that you just sent around, we're under the proposed, historically it looks like we're under this proposed number. And the proposed number, my understanding, we're not in a race to get to that number.
No.
Right? It's not, okay, let's be at 23 in every one of these. If we're at 20, that's great.
Correct.
And historically, it looks like we could be in the teens to low 20s when you're recommending numbers of 23 to 27, depending on the grade here. But historically, we've run under those. This just provides, once again, more framework for the district to operate and fill out its decisions as far as you've just explained the staffing. I appreciate some of the data points and some of the research information you provided. It does help, I think, not only us understand, but maybe the community understand. We've looked at it from a totality, not just this fits the budget.
Right.
I think we would make different decisions if we had a whole bunch of research that said 20 was a better number than 27.
Right.
And that would probably guide us closer to the right decision than a dollar amount would.
Thank you. I think the other thing too, as we think about 4 elementary schools, consistency too around class size, because when I did look at the 3-year look back, though the average rules out, we did have some non-equal class sizes at certain grade levels that you might be running 2 sections of 28 at one school, but at another school that was 3 sections. So
At 15 or
at 16 or 17,
Yeah.
right? So you think about this levels the playing field for all of our teaching staff, and they know where we fall, and we then can make the decision based on policy, not on who's lobbying, who's the loudest, or concerns or complaints, but we have policy in place, and that sets the benchmark like everything else we talk about at this committee, and as a full board, policy governs how we make decisions in the district.
Yeah, I know I've seen documents in the past related to desired class size.
Mhm.
I'm surprised we didn't have anything formally approved. So appreciate you bringing it forward.
Yeah, from some of my light research, and then I've seen numbers of our class sizes, and it always seemed we were in the ballpark of the general information that's out there for public knowledge as far as what could be considered a good class size. I think what you've provided us kind of reaffirms that, and not only that, but we are actually under those numbers.
Right.
And historically, as a district, have done that.
And we'll continue to strive to be under the desired
Yeah.
amounts. But when we have
I mean,
a weird year of enrollment bump or, right?
Yeah.
We have rules now that'll set the
Yeah.
course.
well, I think that, and to your point, we have an influx in the mid-semester of a school for some reason ends up with 3 or 4 extra students in a class, what do we do? And it's probably not financially viable for us to, or even physical space wise, to split another class off and now have 2 of 15 instead of 26 instead of the 23 recommended. But we then work with the staff on that to ensure they have the right support for those extra bodies.
And I'd even argue it's not good for the kids though, send mid-year, especially at the
Well,
elementary
yeah,
level.
continuity
change
wise,
course with
yeah.
new teacher and those type of things.
I think I can also see, we might be doing some disservice to some kids if we are running class sizes of 15 or so in one at a grade and 26 in another.
Mhm.
Their class experiences are different and the expectations of self-management are different. Their skill building is different. And then they get dumped into a middle school or the high school at different abilities. So,
Yep.
All right, good discussion. Any other comments? All right, I will entertain a motion if someone has one.
I'll motion to move forward with a positive recommendation to the full board to the approved new Germantown School District Policy 2133 class size.
I will second.
All right, motion by Ewert, second by Higginbotham. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Are there any other policies that the committee would like to discuss? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Say, I do not have any at this time.
I will
Okay.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned at 5:16 PM. Thank you, everybody, and drive home safe.